Alright guys, so we have a GE French door, and this one was a no cool, so the refrigerator section was not at temperature. The freezer was fine. So when you have a twin cool, meaning the freezer is independent and the freezer does its own thing and the refrigerator is independent as well. So they work when everything is working, meaning your compressor is running. You could have a situation where your freezer is cold and your fresh food is not. So we're speeding up the video here, and this one was pretty frozen over. In fact, this unit had multiple issues. So when you're dealing with something like this, you have to kind of get a good understanding that your unit might not have a defrost issue. So a defrost issue, now we're taking off the deli cover, I guess you may say that, the serving drawer at the bottom, and it's 2/4 inch screws. If you're fully frozen, you either have to unplug, use a steamer. I don't recommend hair dryer. They can damage the plastic. So take your time and get it defrosted before you damage anything. So a defrost issue on a refrigerator can mimic other symptoms. So at the end of the day, once you have a lot of frost building up in the unit, it's very hard sometimes to know the difference. So you have to open it up. Sometimes you can put the unit in defrost and see if the heater turns on. You can do that. But a lot of times when you're not cooling, you really need to get to the source. As you can see, this one's fully frozen. And you will see there it is. The bottom is full of water. That's a telltale sign that you have a clogged drain. Now, the clogged drain on the unit will mimic a defrost issue. You can see all the ice that was built up, quite a bit. So a clogged drain is going to basically cause the unit to ice up. When there's water that the unit cannot get rid of, it will freeze. And when the heater comes on, it turns it into steam, and that whole process gets repeated. And it's very, very difficult. So sometimes you have to go to the back of the fridge and get the drain unclogged. As you can see, that's fully frozen. And your best bet is to get a good steamer and get everything defrosted properly. Now, the evaporator cover on this unit was pretty warped, and I explained coming up, but we were able to save it for the customer. But normally I would replace them when they're that soaked and damaged, but the circumstances, she was not able to. So we were able to save it. Now, 1/4 inch screws. Now, once you get behind the evaporator cover, that is all foam and plastic. The outer is plastic, and behind it's going to be foam. Now, you need to get a small screwdriver or a putty knife to remove that. That's where your fan plug-in is. Now, you don't want to force that cover, the evaporator. You want to make sure that it comes off nice and easy. If you have to force it, you have a lot of ice built up, and if you force it, you'll damage your evaporator. If you damage your evaporator, you're going to need a new fridge. So take your time, get a steamer, or get a fan, stick it in the fridge, make sure you unplug the fridge, or turn the unit off. And you have to get it has to be thawed. If it's not thawed, you're going to be damaging the evaporator cover. So take your time with it. Everything comes out as one piece. Slowly pull. Don't force. If you have to force it, it's still frozen. And if you do damage it, you will need a new fridge. So the evaporator cover sometimes you can replace, like I mentioned earlier. But keep in mind, to defrost your unit, everything will come apart nicely. You should not have to force anything. Now, you do have a vent hole on the side of those, And in your serving drawer, the drawer that goes in right there, make sure you don't cover it. If you cover that up, that can also cause your fresh food section. And by the way, this unit was pretty stuffed. I explained to the customer, you do need to move things around a little bit. Otherwise, that can restrict airflow and cause some things to freeze. Reason for that, the air is not actually circulating. It becomes stagnant. So keep that in mind. Now I did forget, so this is how you turn the unit off. Press and hold. And back on, and back off again. Press and hold. Excellent. Now sometimes I leave the units off, so I have some lights, but normally I like to have it unplugged. And also I was checking for voltage to the fan, so you do need it on for that. All right, so we're going to be pretty much focusing on the evaporator itself, and I will show you shortly how the cover itself, not the cover was pretty twisted, but you will see shortly the evaporator itself. As you can see, that piece was broken and it was so frozen. I explained all that to the customer. Now, the evaporator itself, you'll see we had to actually push it slightly back because it was slightly moved away from the fan. So the fan sits right over it, and if the evaporator is pushed forward, it does not allow the fan to do a full, you may say, suction. The fan pulls warm air as it passes over the evaporator. So if the evaporator is not fully under the fan, you're going to be restricting a lot of airflow or cool air going up. So you will see how we get that fixed. And so we're dealing with the defrost right now. And as you can see, it was pretty clogged. And sometimes you do have to take the cover off in the back and go back there. Now, if you pay attention, you'll notice that the evaporator cover is pretty warped. And whenever you're dealing with something of this magnitude where you have a lot of frost and ice, you definitely want to get to the bottom of it, and you want to make sure that you replace the evaporator cover, or at least try and get it to be as straight as possible. It might still be able to be used. The customer was on a fixed income, so we're able to kind of get it defrosted properly. The main thing was to get the unit back to how it was, and we were actually able to reuse the defrost, the evaporated cover. But normally I would recommend replacing it. This unit was actually pretty bad, where the unit was in a pretty bad shape for quite a while. And elderly lady, so she didn't realize it was so badly frozen over. Apparently she said the fridge was working fine. Based on the image, you could see that thing was frozen over for a while. So it had a few issues, and obviously the clog drain was a major issue, and you can see how warped it is. Now, the fan is the main issue, but it had a couple other issues, and As we go along, you will see, but you want to make sure you get every area, everything defrosted and cleaned out. Because if not, the issue will come back 100%. So, all right, so as you can see, the drain actually was still clogged. So we might have to go to the back of the fridge to get the rest of the drain unclogged. Now, I wanted to show also that sometimes you can get the job done without removing all the food or every shelves from the refrigerator, but it definitely is a lot easier to get it all out so you can actually get all the passageway from the top, get it blown out, and while you're there, go ahead and get the evaporator itself fully defrosted so that the unit does not have any ice restricting the flow of air. See that? Nicely flowing, which is what you want. What the fan does, it literally pulls the warm air from the food, brings it across the evaporator cover, and it cools it. So here we are in the back of the fridge. You have some 1/4-inch screws. Remove the cover, lift it up, and we're going to be removing the drain tube. Now the drain tube, this particular drain tube on this GE, which is a bad design by the way, GE used to have excellent P-trap type. So we're blowing some hot steam up into the drain tube area, and if there's any restriction up there, it's going to blow it out. But the restriction, I think, was in the drain tube itself. Now, the new design drain tube GE actually are using, they are basically Samsung's failed design drain tube, and Whirlpool had those for a while as well, and they cost Whirlpool, it's a class action suit. So they're called duckbill. So they basically have a pointy point with sometimes 2 holes or 1 hole, and it allows water to slowly drip. In theory, it's a good design. I have a video somewhere where I actually show how they work. So in actuality, they do work, but when you have any kind of contaminant or anything that is sludge type, it gets into the pathway of those tiny holes and it causes the water to stop flowing, or I should say the drip. So when it drips and it can't go anywhere, it starts to build up and eventually it makes its way back into the evaporator area in the refrigerator. Then the water starts to build up and the problem compounds because now you have water that is now turning into steam and it just makes a major mess. So now we're going to clean this and put it back on, and that takes care of the defrost or the drain tube issue. Just make sure you snug it up and get it back all the way up so that you don't have any air leak. An air leak would basically be between the top of the drain tube and where it connects. So, and if you do have anything that's broken, go ahead and either replace it or get some kind of glue to where you're not going to have any air intrusion. Now, another portion on this repair was the Mulon. You see that portion? And if you have a situation to where the door is closed, but the Mulon is not closing, then you're going to have air being pulled in to your unit and it will ice your refrigerator up. It will give you a no cool, or I should say, the fridge will be around 60 or 50 degrees, so it will not be cold enough. So you want to make sure that everything is working properly. That can also overwhelm the fan. So you can adjust these doors. I'm not sure what happened when I was recording. I don't think I was able to catch it, but you can adjust it from under there, and then you turn the latch. So, and then there you go. That's how it should be. So when your right side of the door closes, it seals, and that protects your interior from outside warm air. Now, before you install your fan, you want to make sure you check for voltage coming from the refrigerator, and you should get around 11 point whatever. It's a 12-volt fan or 13 volts. So you want to make sure that you're getting proper voltage, and that will tell you that your fan was the issue and not the board. So sometimes you will have a problem with the board and your fan will not work. So you want to check for voltage before you actually just replace the fan. But I will say from experience, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a bad fan. And you don't have to test if you don't want. You can just buy the fan, stick it in. If it turns on, you know the fan was bad. But you want to make sure you do your full defrost, because if the fan is not working, you're going to have a lot of frosting, and it will cause your unit to build up ice as well. So your fan works in tandem in removing moisture and heat from the evaporator by rotating and bringing the warm air across it. All right, so to put your new fan in, you want to make sure you follow the instruction just the way you pull your old one out, and you insert it back into the same position so that you don't make a mistake. But before you do that, you do have the rubber like a cover, and that must be reinstalled onto your new fan. And it's pretty straightforward. Just pay attention to how you take it off and then put it back the same way. And the label, see that label on top of the fan? Make sure you keep that pointing up in case you make a mistake. It does not go to the bottom. And if you do accidentally put it to the bottom, your fridge will not cool. All right, so it's time to insert the fan. Make sure the white portion, the label, the sticker, is facing up, and your wires need to be on the facing you, and you will see a little notch. Make sure you tuck your wires in so everything stays nice and secure. And then on the side, you will see like a little section. Tuck your wires in so they don't hang or dangle, and then go ahead and plug your fan in. If the fan is working, it should turn on right away. You'll hear it. You can put maybe a piece of tissue or something under it. Don't use your hand to hold the fan back. It's not good for the motor, but you can put a tissue or something, or just look. You should see it rotating. And I'm using a pick here to open up the clip so the wires will fall in, and then we're pretty much done with the fan.
And they would come once, I guess it was once a week, maybe even twice. I know.
All right, guys, so now we're putting the evaporator cover back on, and you always want to double check, make sure your fan is still rotating. You can always check it by your finger, just turn it real quick, and make sure that everything seats correctly. And so this part of the video, you can see where the evaporator is slightly pulled away from the back of the wall, and that can cause you to not cool properly as well. I think when the unit was so frozen, it literally pushed itself away. And so if you do have a situation like that, you want to make sure you get it pushed back slightly. Just be super careful with all the refrigerant line and whatnot. You don't want to damage them. So when the fan is not directly over the evaporator, you're not going to be cooling properly. So we need to get that pushed back, and then we're able to put the evaporator cover back on, as you can see right now. So be super careful and pay attention to different signs and different things that can cause your unit not to cool properly. All right. Now it's time to put your screws in. So always tighten the screws slowly at a time. Don't tighten one side down too much at one time. And I've seen actually covers where they warp and they twist the fan, put a lot of pressure on the fan. So keep it nice and even. You can always go back over and snug them up. So we're pretty much done here. So follow along, enjoy the rest of the video. All right. All right, so we're all done. Don't forget to turn your unit back on, and it should be at 0 and 37 for GE, and we're all done. All right, thanks for watching.